they all laughed at me. They told me I was dumb, alright, when I did it. Well, guess what? They were probably still right, even though Ugnauht's getting a datacron. But regardless, and just to show you that I'm not messing you around, I do actually have an R9 Thugnaught. Thank you, Scribe, for your goals that you set on your channel to give people the right, the authority, the autonomy, the discretion to point Relic 9s at my account and tell me, hey Scribe, you need to do that one. That's why I have so many useless Relic 9s. I'm looking at you, Phoenix Gar Saxon. I'm looking at you, Hoth Rebel Soldier. I'm looking at you, Ugnaught. I'm looking at some other people probably that don't come to front foremost. But Thuggy over here is getting a datacron in the next update, and it's, it doesn't really do much. It just helps against droids. However, I was having a look through the data mines recently, and I did come across one that did catch my eye, and it is for Darth Nihilus. Now, Darth Nihilus is a fun character, and he doesn't often, to my knowledge, get a datacron. We've had one for Scion in the past that I believe was pretty garbage, but now we're getting one for Nihilus, and I think it deserves just a little bit of discussion between you and I so that we can find out where it best fits and what we could potentially do with it. Let's take a look. So here we are. This is in the data mine section of the Swigger Events Discord server, a wonderful place full of magic, hope, and dreams, and they'll never steal your kidney. So we can see that the datacrons for this next setup over here are going back to type-based datacrons. So we're going to have support ones, tank ones, we're going to have healer ones, and attacker ones, and they all are seeming kind of funky. But support is what Nihilus is, so we have to assume that he is going to fall under the support level 6. At the start of each encounter, grant all allies evasion up and tenacity up for 2 turns, and inflict evasion down and tenacity down on all enemies for 2 turns, which cannot be evaded or resisted. First and foremost, it's kind of cool, right? Evasion up, tenacity up is great. You stop all the debuffs, you have a higher chance of dodging. I'm looking at you, Ezra Bridger Exile, who happens to be a support character, so we'll be able to trigger this support datacron as well. Lovely! Evasion up on Ezra is just what we are looking for, ladies and gentlemen. However, I digress. Whenever a non-support ally is critically hit, grant them protection up 20%, stacking to a maximum of 100% for 2 turns. Why is this important and annoying on a Nihilus team? Well, it should go without saying. Your typical Traya team in this game, 5v5, is going to be this one over here. You've got Traya, you've got Savage, you've got Nihilus, Talon, and Scion, right? That would be your prototypical setup for a Darth Traya team. If it's 3v3, you'll go Savage and Nihilus. Now, Traya is a support type character, but Savage is an attacker. And when you have his Omicron in GAC, he becomes a pseudo tank, right? Because he will constantly be gaining loads of bonus turn meter, and he will also be gaining a boatload of stats and constantly getting resilient defense, which is kind of forcing the enemy to hit him all the time. Because he is an attacker, that means he counts as a non-support character, which means, as we saw over here, every time they hit Savage, he's going to be getting protection up for 20%, stacking up to 100% for 2 turns, and they're not going to be able to attack anybody else apart from Savage. This is just going to make Traya even more irritating to deal with, because they'll get stuck behind Savage, who's just going to keep on gaining additional protection, which is so annoying. He's a difficult enough unit to defeat at the best of times, so you throw in that additional survivability, all the better. Now, this will of course also apply to characters like Talon and characters like Scion. Not that that really matters for those guys in particular. It won't happen to Traya, obviously. At the start of their turn, support allies will dispel all buffs on all enemies. So Traya and Nihilus are both support types in this setup. You can see Traya over here, she's a support type, Nihilus is a support type, and then we've got an attacker for Talon, a tank for Scion, and an attacker for Savage as well. So whenever Traya takes a turn and whenever Nihilus takes a turn, we're just going to dispel all the buffs on the enemy team, which is very, very useful, because one of the annoying things that happens with Nihilus is when you've got his AoE Drain Force ability, which can reset his cooldowns or lower his cooldowns. If the enemy has got Foresight, that becomes very frustrating. Now it doesn't matter, because you are going to dispel it at the start of the turn. Winner. Not only that, but if Evasion up, Health Steal up, potency up, or tenacity up were dispelled, inflict the opposite debuff on all enemies for 2 turns, which can't be evaded or resisted. That's kind of just an extra little bit of juiciness on the side, I suppose. Being able to put, evasion down, health steal down, potency down, tenacity down is very useful. Tenacity down in particular basically guarantees that all your debuffs are going to land, not that you really require too many debuffs on a Treya team. Finally, whenever a support type character is critically hit or inflicted with a debuff, they will stealth for 1 turn. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? We've already got the Savage over there sort of pseudo-tanking all the time, but now we've also got Treya and Nihilus constantly stealthing whenever they get critically hit, giving them an extra layer of protection. Now that's all great, but this has nothing to do with Nihilus's level 9. Not yet anyway. So let's see what Nihilus's level 9 actually brings to the table here. Here we have Nihilus's level 9. At the start of the encounter, if there is another support ally, Darth Treya, Darth Nihilus gains 100% max health and 100% max protection for the rest of the encounter, just making him even tankier, which is great. Don't forget that Nihilus, when he uses his Annihilate ability, is going to absorb 100% of the target's max health as well, and add that to his own health pool. So he's going to be super chunky. Whenever Nihilus reduces his cooldowns, for each cooldown reduced, he gains 25% turn meter and 50% stacking offense for the rest of the encounter. So Nihilus, as soon as he uses his life drain ability, if say we're in 5v5, everybody's got a debuff because, if they had tenacity up, say at the start of the battle, he's going to dispel it, put tenacity down. Then when you do your life drain, as you can see over here, this chance to increase their cooldowns by 1 gets doubled from 50% to 100% if they have a debuff. So because he might have flipped their buffs into debuffs, he's going to guarantee that he's going to increase their cooldowns by 1, which in turn is going to decrease his cooldown of Annihilate by 1, or 5 in this instance. So when you pair that with what we've seen in the datacron, it's going to get a little bit nutty, because as soon as he uses this ability, he's going to reduce his cooldowns on Annihilate significantly, and then most likely, in 5v5, he's going to take a bonus turn because he's going to be gaining 100% turn meter and a whole boatload of offense. All he would need to do is basically increase the cooldowns of 4 of the enemy, which will decrease his cooldowns by 4, which will give him 25% turn meter and a casual 200% offense. Now don't forget, it's stacking with no limit, so he can infinitely ramp his damage output. This Treya team has now all of a sudden become scary, okay? And we're only halfway through. Whenever Darth Nihilus defeats an enemy, expose all enemies for 2 turns, which can't be evaded or resisted. Now, the exposes is nice, it's okay, but it is a debuff on the enemy team that is going to try and guarantee that his cooldown increase from Drain Life is going to guarantee once again, which will give him more turn meter and of course give him additional offense. Alright, now don't forget, we do have another source of cooldown reduction on the team through Darth Treya. Her Isolate can decrease cooldowns on a targeted enemy. So you give that to Nihilus, say you use Drain Life, then you target him with Isolate, he's all of a sudden decreased cooldowns up to 5 times potentially with his Drain Life, giving him basically 100% turn meter, giving him 200% offense or 250% offense or whatever it's going to be. And she can decrease his cooldowns as well with the Isolate and give him an extra 25% turn meter, an extra 50% offense, and decrease the cooldowns on his actual life drain ability as well as Annihilate. It's going to be crazy, guys, trust. Whenever Darth Nihilus inflicts a damage over time, all allies going to gain 3 stacks of heal over time for 2 turns. Now the interesting thing about this is on his unique Lord of Hunger, at the start of each of his turns, Nihilus is going to inflict damage over time for 2 turns on a random enemy that doesn't have any debuffs, which is great. If all of them are debuffed, inflict damage over time on a random enemy. So basically at the start of his turns, he's always going to inflict damage over times on at least 1 person. Now don't get me wrong, having 3 stacks of heal over times on all your allies is not fantastic, but it's certainly not a bad thing. More buffs is always a good thing. And finally, whenever Darth Nihilus attacks out of turn, his cooldowns for Annihilate reduces by 1. Now, currently to my knowledge, there isn't a way of giving him Retribution. Right now anyway, and I don't think there are any real calls to assist in the team, but we haven't seen the level 3 buffs just yet. So I don't know if we're going to get level 3 buffs, or if this is designed to potentially go with C to create a monster team. in 5v5 where you could have C-Lead with Treya, the triumvirate essentially. Maybe you drop off Scion and throw in Talon or Savage. It'll be great. It'll be real great. Now, when you combine all of these abilities together, you're actually going to make one scary team. And I do think that this is a team that is capable of actually taking down certain galactic legends. The one thing that was really missing from Treya teams when she was facing off against Jabba is the fact that they don't have any reliable way to effectively ramp up enough offense to kill Jabba. You quite frequently are able to kill all the adds, but you don't have the damage to push through that Jabba. Now I think that is entirely different. With Nihilus constantly being able to decrease his cooldowns, which increases his offense exponentially, 50% with no cap, I do think that this team will at least be able to take down Jabba the Hutt, which is no bad thing. An extra GL counter in the Treya team is great, and I think that there is a lot of possibility when you throw this team under C now. Having C in there is going to give the whole team retribution, and C does have a mass assist, which means lower cooldowns for Nihilus. Okay, he's going to lower the cooldowns on his Annihilate every time he attacks out a turn, which is phenomenal. Really, really good, and they're going to have a hard time targeting him to defeat him, because if you critically hit him, he's going to stealth, and then of course you've got Savage to provide the additional backup. I think this team is a real dead ringer. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to actually test it out. Now, don't forget, next time we go into GAC, we are probably going to be having that little bit of fun of Relic Delta being a thing, and a lot of people haven't put tremendous amounts of Relic levels into their Nihilus, myself included. Mine is only, I want to say, Relic 5. I need to take him up to at least Relic 7 to try and keep that survivability nice and high. But I'm excited to try this one out. Now, there was one other one that I did want to draw your attention to because it just looks kind of fun. And it's this one over here. We've got a datacron coming out for HK47, which you don't see HK ever anymore. He's really lost a lot of use recently, and I would love to see a little bit of power come to him. So, at the start of the encounter, HK is going to gain 75 speed. Fine, it's all very well and good. If HK47 is in the leader slot at the start of his turn, he inflicts evasion down on all enemies for 1 turn, which can't be evaded or resisted. This is kind of garbage in my opinion. I don't see the point of this. Whenever an enemy is inflicted with burning or torture, HK47's ability cooldowns are reset. Now that's really great, and it gives us an indication of where this team's going to go, which is going to be with the murder droids, BT1 and 000, which is implying that this guy is going to be joining Afra as a permanent staple. Well, maybe not a permanent staple. Whenever HK47 uses Assassination Protocol, he is going to inflict ability block on the target enemy for 2 turns, which can't be evaded or resisted. That's kind of nice, and an unresistible ability block is great. Now, I will remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that HK47's Assassination Protocol is an ability that starts with its cooldowns on, and it's got a cooldown of 9. What does it do? Dispel all buffs on the target enemy, deal physical damage to them. This attack can't be evaded and deals 100% more damage against Jedi. If the target enemy has Deathmark or Fear, this ability's cooldown is reset. So it means if they've got Deathmark or Fear, you can just go pop, pop, and keep doing it. This ability starts on cooldown, and its cooldown is reduced by 1 whenever an enemy is inflicted with fear. This was back when we originally had Darth Revan in the game, and he was used to take down Jedi. It was actually pretty good back then, but now has since drastically dropped off. But that's not all. Whenever an enemy is inflicted with tenacity down, they are also inflicted with fear for 1 turn, which can't be copied or resisted. Now, the thing that I like about this is that HK47 has his own access to an AoE tenacity down, which is great, which means, you know, you've got an AoE fear on HK47. Not only that, if the enemy is inflicted with burning or torture, HK47 abilities cooldowns are reset. So you've got, you know, burning from BT1, you've got torture from 000. That's 2 ways. So you could just go throw a grenade, everybody gets tenacity down, everybody gets feared, then you can burn them, and his ability cooldowns are going to get reset, and you can throw another tenacity down, and it's going to fear the entire enemy team, which is, again, great. I like the sound of this. But let's not forget, HK47 is also an attacker type. So what does the attacker type datacron give to the team? To be honest, it's actually kind of nutty. The attacker datacrons do this. Whenever an ally inflicts a debuff on an enemy, and that's any ally, right? all attacker allies gain accuracy up for 1 turn and 5% offense, stacking to a maximum of 120%. Now, normally accuracy up I don't really care for, but in this current day and age of evasion evasion characters like Ezra Bridger Exile, I quite like having that extra accuracy to offset the the evasion mastery that the enemy is getting. Okay, and this is stacking 5% offense up to 120% every time we inflict a debuff on an enemy, and it's all allies. So that's, you know, you only need one guy constantly inflicting debuffs on the enemy, that all your attacker allies are going to constantly ramp up their damage. It's kind of cool. Also, whenever attackers attack out of turn, they deal bonus true damage, which can't be evaded. Pretty sure no true damage can be evaded. And they gain 5% defense penetration, stacking maximum to 120% until the end of battle. Now, there isn't a heck of a lot of attacks out of turn in the Aphra team. I know that the hacked commando droid can call to assist at a random droid, so that's a little bit tricky, in particular with HK-47. Whenever an attacker uses a special ability, they deal 25% more damage for each buff on the target enemy. That's quite nice. The enemy's got buffed, you throw that HK-47 grenade and, you know, AoE tenacity down, do a bunch of damage, do additional damage for each buff on them. I like it. Then you fear them. During an attacker's turn, they can ignore stealth and they can ignore taunt if they have no debuffs on them. This is a really cool little addition. Attackers being able to ignore both taunt and stealth is actually really huge. It kind of goes to counteract the support datacron that we saw earlier, where Nihilus and Traya are going to stealth themselves whenever they're crit. This one over here will let attackers circumvent that. It's kind of a cool little setup. I like it. I think that overall, this HK-47 Cron is going to work kind of well overall with a Aphra team. We've got lots of cooldown reductions, we've got a little bit of attack out of turn assist, lots of debuffs, which is going to ramp up HK-47's offense quite significantly, and a whole bunch of control through AoE fears and lowering of cooldowns. We're living in the Aphra age, baby. We're living in the Aphra age with IG-90 coming to the table as well. That's going to be freaking sick, even if we won't have this datacron probably active at that time. Who knows, we'll probably have something else, I guess, by the point that IG-90 comes to the game in terms of legacy characters. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for being the balls. You are the bee's nipples, okay? You are the wasp's testicles. I like you a lot. I like you a lot. I'll see you all in the very next video. Love you. Bye.